All right, Dano Pixel Die, Chapter 13. October came with colors as pretty as laundry on a line. Then it was November. And on dark mornings, on the way to the barn to milk Daisy, I thought the air would snap my lungs. For weeks, Papa had looked at Pinky every day. He even said I should feed her some new food and to mix some meat scraps into her mash, enough to turn her wild and make her heat. But there was no estrus. No sign of Pinky coming to age. I saw Mr. Tanner up on the ridge with his Purdy gunning for grouse, so I told him about my pig and that there was no estrus, no heat. I asked him if he thought Pinky was barren. He said he'd stop over next morning. He did. I was hardly through chores when I heard the rattle of an ox cart coming down the road. It was Bob and Bib, and were they ever growed. Behind him, as he sat, the wagon slats were slatted up, and I couldn't see what was inside. As he turned in, I ran out to meet him. "Morning, brother," I said. "Morning, Robert. Fine day." I looked between the cart slats, and there he was, the finest boar in the county, big and mean and all male. No one could have ever eat him. His ham would have been strong as tree bark and full of tack. "Where's your gilt?" Mr. Tanner asked. "Round back," I said, pointing to where we kept Pinky. "Your pa home?" "No, sir," I said. "He left early. November is a busy time for his work." "No matter," said Ben Tanner. "Reason why of it is this. Perhaps your pig is barren, perhaps not. Sometimes a girl just needs to be coaxed and courted. You and I can't get Pinky to heat because, to her eyes, we're not that handsome. But wait till she gets the smell of Samson. He can smell heat when we can't, and if he does, she'll change her tune." We backed the ox cart to the small box pen and put a ramp up for Samson. Removing the slats from Mr. Tanner, I got a look at that boar for the first time. He must have weighed 400 or even 500, and he was one big Poland. Mr. Tanner gave him a pride. He left the cart walking down the ramp like a king. In his nose, the big brass ring caught the sun and it shined real bright. "All my sow's a ferret, so he'll be more than happy to help. He's been in a pen by his lonesome longer than a week. He's due." I went around back, called Pinky, but she wouldn't come, and she was too darn big to push, so I had to take a small switch to her. I swatted her good and proper all the way to the box pen until she went in to mix with Samson. As we walked through the gate, Ben slapped a handful of lard on her rump, under her tail. Pinky was large, but next to Samson, she looked like she was only about half growed. She just looked at him, her nose close to the ground like it always was, trying to get a smell that would tell her what he was. Her rump had been dry as dust, but that didn't mean it couldn't heat. Samson grunted. He walked to her, pushed her with his nose. She let him push her like that once more, then she backed away from him. He walked to her and by her, rubbing his shoulder against hers. He tried to smell her rump, but she bolted, kicking away at him with her hind feet. Several times he tried to get a good whiff of her, but she wasn't holding still for it. Turning on him, she got her teeth onto his ear and tore its edge before Mr. Tanner could whack a sharp blow with his stick. "All part of courting," said he. "Samson just got his face slapped, that's all." The two hogs just stood there, looking at each other, not doing anything. That's when Ben Tanner lit up his pipe. "Your father," he said, "how's his health?" Now, remember last chapter what did we find out about Rob's dad?
He's sick.
He's sick, like how sick?
Like
Deathly sick, yes. He asked the question real easy, like it didn't matter none, but I knew it did. Ben Tanner looked at me when I didn't say up, and he wanted an answer. "Fine," I said. "Papa's so sturdy he never missed a day's slaughter in his entire life." I had to look away when I said it. Had no idea what I could have said next. As I was trying to think of something, Miss Sarah came out of the barn. Her 3 kittens were with her, but now they too were growed up almost as mighty as Miss Sarah herself. "Those are Miss Sarah's kittens," I said, "all growed. That old barn cat of mine, the big buff I call Caleb, if he ain't the Tom that serviced that litter, I'll ride Samson all the way home." Looking at Samson, I figured there wasn't a man living or dead who could straddle him. He was one mean-looking boar, had a mouth full of mean-looking teeth. Even though Ben Tanner probably tried to cut back each tusk with pliers or wire cutters, it was no picnic, I would wager, being a dentist, to Samson. Now that Caleb come to trespass on Miss Sarah, I said, sure would be fitting if Samson would breed Pinky. Sure would, but mind, son, if he does, I expect a stud fee. Stud fee? $50, said Mr. Tanner, smiling, or 2 picks of the litter. You're to choose. You can have 2 of a brood, I said. Done. Now it was no longer a friendly visit. Now it was business. And Samson seemed to guess what we all expected of him. Butting hard into Pinky's front shoulder with his snout, he turned her half about. And that's all I'm reading of that part. It gets a little graphic. Sorry to disappoint you. I'll talk to you about it when we're done with the chapter. So the deed is done, and Rob is all proud of Pinky, okay? And he's going to jump into the pen and go pet her and tell her what a good girl she is, now that, she might be a mama. And that's where we're going to pick up. You crazy boy, you going to that pen now? Go near her? That boy will have you for breakfast. Where's your sense? I guess I don't have any, I said. Time you got some. How old be you, Rob? 12, sir. I'll be 13 come February. Good. 12's a boy, 13 a man. Now just take Pinky here. She weren't naught but a maiden before this morning, but not anymore. You understand? Yes, sir, I think so. Your pa is slaughtering today, isn't he? Yes, sir. Hard work. He ought to take it easy one of these days. Now he's got you to man the place. Papa works all the time. He don't never rest. Worse than that, he works inside himself. I can see it on his face, like he's been trying all his life to catch up to something, but whatever it is, it's always ahead of him and he can't reach it. You reason that all by your lonesome? Yes, sir. You're a keen lad for a shaker, boy. How your lessons? I get A in everything. Almost. Everything? Everything except English. I don't never get an A in that, but darned if I know why. Maybe the teacher doesn't like you. The teacher is Miss Malcolm. She likes me fine, but I still don't get no A in English. Strange. She says I have potential. Means someday I could do a lot. Miss Malcolm says I could be more than a farmer. More than a farmer? Ben Tanner looked a bit red. What better can a man be? There's no higher calling than animal husbandry and making things live and grow. We farmers are stewards. Our lot is to tend all of God's good living things, and I say there is nothing finer. That's what Papa says. Just 5 years we'll own this farm, all of it. Glad to hear it. You Pecks are good neighbors. I laughed. What's so funny? That's what Papa and I always say about you folks, you good neighbors. I watched all your sisters grow up, pretty girls they were, prim and proper in every way, and a real credit to your folks. Thank you, Mr. Tanner. I was sad to hear when your brothers were taken. Bess was too. She spent time with your ma 'cause of it. But now it's you, Robert, and you got to start. Pinky's going to make you a fine brood sow. She'll fare at least 10 pigs spring and fall. If you breed her fresh again just after 3 days, she weans. That's 20 pigs a year. 5 years, 100 hogs. Gee, I said, 100 hogs? It's not the number alone, boy, but Pinky ain't just another pig. She comes from a stout, meaty line. So does Samson. The sow that bore him would often bear 12 instead of 10. 2 extra. That's dollars, boy. Dollars you can pay off this farm with. Good, solid Yankee dollars that you can bank. All this talk of hogs and dollars and meat and banks rolling around inside my head with no direction. Didn't quite sound Christian to me. But then I suppose that everyone in the world didn't live all strict by the book of Shaker. We're plain people, sir. It may not be right to want for so much. Nonsense, boy. Bess and I are fearing Christians, same as you. But you ain't a Shaker, are you? No, I'm a Baptist. Wash feet, hard shell Baptist. Born one, and I'll die one. Bess too. I almost busted out laughing. There they were, the 3 people who probably loved me more than anyone in the whole world besides Papa, Mama, and Aunt Carrie. Mr. and Mrs. Tanner and Aunt Mattie, and all of them were good shouting Baptists. Just goes to show how wrong I could feel about some things and how foolish.